Is it true about you and the Delaney sisters?
Is what true?
Come on, Harry. There aren't any secrets on a ship this small.
What have you been telling people?
There are a lot of things I like in this scene. Namely, the way gossip would travel around a ship like this, the way Tom knows he's about to be called out, the innocent attitude of Vince and Kim, the fact a girl was allowed to be the one pushing for a relationship, the reference we get to B'Elanna and Kim's relationship, and Tom and Harry are hanging out like besties do. But one of the subtle things I really like is that by design or accident, all the people eating the meals are split into Maquis and Starfleet groupings. If we're not going to have outright tension between the crews, at least recognizing that people tend to stick in their own groups because that's their comfort zones is a nice touch. Also, am I the only one who identifies with this blue shirt in the background? You're there and you're laughing along with the conversation, but you're not really part of it? That girl makes me feel seen.
I think it's finally beginning to happen. Both crews getting along.
This comment from Janeway is my one critique of this scene actually. We haven't seen a time where the crews didn't get along.
What is the nature of your emergency?
We have no emergency.
But you're sending out a distress call.
Yes, we are.
Why?
Because you are in distress.
Who would seriously do this? I mean, it makes for a funny moment where the show goes from something is wrong to we're getting pranked, but who would seriously do this? You just hail them, especially considering that this race is renowned for their hospitality. We'll talk more about this later, but there are some fan theories that the actions in this episode are why Tuvok doesn't stay Lieutenant Commander for much longer. Seeing that Kes works both in the galley and the medical bay makes me wonder how much time an Ocampan would actually spend sleeping. They only live for 9 to 12 years. It would make a lot of sense if they only needed a few minutes or maybe an hour's worth of sleep to make the most of their lives.
This is Gath. He's from Sakaris.
Ooh, Sakaris.
Do you know the planet?
Yeah, only stories.
You know, it's kind of funny, but Neelix rarely ever has first-hand knowledge of anything or anyone in their travels. It's always stories of this or that, and they're typically stories that affirm whatever is already immediately evident. I wonder if Neelix was lying about everything.
How do you know about us?
Our people are very well traveled. Some of them have brought back stories about the ship of aliens from another part of the galaxy.
First of all, nice foreshadowing about how their race is well traveled. Second of all, I like how inconsistent the reports about Voyager are, since a lone ship journeying home would be known mainly by hearsay, and the reports on them would be heavily influenced by what sort of interaction they had with the person doing the talking.
A vacation, if you will. Get away from the confines of the ship. Enjoy the beauty of our landscape. Meet and talk with interesting, learned people.
And the crew would certainly welcome a little shore leave, Captain.
Voyager has been in the Delta Quadrant for 130 days at this point, or around 4 months. It makes sense that they would be open to a vacation, especially considering the fact that they are running low on energy reserves and haven't had time to fully process how long they're going to be stuck out here.
Sounds like all this would increase performance and maximize efficiency, don't you think, Mr. Tuvok?
Indeed.
I always enjoyed it as a kid when I saw my mom convincing my dad to say yes to something ridiculous us kids were asking for. It's fun to watch in Voyager too.
What is this material? It's so delicate.
Exquisite, isn't it? It's the latest import from the Destris.
Come on, be honest. It would be better with gold, wouldn't it? Also, it's weird, right? 2 different women go shopping in Trek and both of them just so happen to really want a bolt of fabric, but neither of them do anything with it ever? Janeway should have been sampling some local coffee flavor.
Tell me, would it help if I said that you could have an entire wardrobe made from these beautiful fabrics and that it would give all of us pleasure to create it for you?
How does this race survive? A pleasure planet like Ryza makes sense since it's subsidized by the Federation. But how do the people of this planet get goods from other cultures? Sure, cold hard Latinum is just a fancy way to barter, replacing the direct trade of goods for other goods, but all these people want our stories. How can there be any money in just telling Oh, I see what you did there, Hollywood.
That's beautiful.
No.
This isn't a musical instrument. It's an atmospheric sensor. The frequency of the chimes indicates changes in weather conditions.
How? Where? Why? I mean, either this race has extremely sophisticated hearing to differentiate between 2 different notes to indicate different temperatures, or this device is so generalized that you might as well just have a weather rock. And that's not even taking into account memorizing what all the sounds mean. This is as useless as those stupid timepieces! Ugh!
When I see you wearing that scarf, my pleasure will be greater than yours.
Well,
Is he supposed to be charming at this moment? Cause this is coming off pretty creepy. So creepy!
So the whole thing exploded, and there we were, 70,000 light years from home and no way to get back. Felt pretty lonely.
One of my few complaints that span across all the Star Trek shows is how unflappable the characters are. It's one of the reasons Reg Barkley is one of my favorite characters. When major events happen to him, it affects him, and he often needs help processing it. I would have loved to see more of this happening in Voyager, where we see more people struggling with reality that they're not going to get home for a long, long time.
That's a very noble story.
Noble.
Am I supposed to believe that Ensign Kim doesn't know what noble means?
Stories can be whimsical or frightening or melancholy or many other things. But noble stories are the ones that can most affect our lives.
Alright. Let's not pat our back too hard here. You're gonna leave a bruise.
I would never share one without permission.
Go right ahead. I've got a few others too.
You do? Come with me.
I'm not saying she's a story digger, but she ain't messing with no Vulcan poems.
Tell me your stories. All of them.
How are they supposed to get back? I don't see a return platform.
Why is it so much warmer here? What is that?
I don't like that Ensign Kim goes momentarily stupid for this reveal. He obviously went through a transporter. Why is he acting like they have to be just outside the city now?
A system far from Sikaris.
How far?
Alastria is about 2.5 billion times the distance between Sikaris and its sun.
Who actually measures units like this? I guess school teachers trying to explain distances using the distance from the Earth to the Sun, but beyond them, this only serves to drum up the suspense about the distance.
It's almost 40,000 light years.
I do like this reveal though. 40,000 light years is over half the trip back home. Being able to move a distance like this would be phenomenal. More importantly though, 1 light year is equal to about 63,241 AUs, and 40,000 light years is around 2.5 billion AUs, so at least they get this math right.
We cannot share our technology. Once it's out of our control, it might fall into the hands of those who would abuse it. And our canon of laws strictly forbids that.
This is a great plot idea. Up to now in Trek, we've seen 7 episodes that examine the Prime Directive. 9 if you count 2 possible episodes from the animated series. But in each case, the story was told from our perspective. This is really the first time we got to be on the receiving end of the Prime Directive, and saw how frustrating it would be to know a race has technology that would greatly benefit us, and be denied it because of a one-size-fits-all law.
I can't believe they're not going to help us. Some kind of hospitality.
Okay, Ensign Kim, I know you're emotional right now, but let's not fall into a false equivalency logical fallacy. Just because they said no to one thing doesn't mean they're not insanely hospitable.
The possibility exists that we could reconfigure the Matrix at that point to take us another 30,000 light years, right into Federation space.
Since they've already said no, this kind of thinking is only going to make you feel worse.
He's got a point. The obsession with getting the technology blinds the crew to the possibility that they could have possibly used the technology if they had just changed their own mindset ever so slightly.
we have our own set of rules, which includes the Prime Directive. How many times have we been in the position of refusing to interfere when some kind of disaster threatened an alien culture?
I've said this before, but I think this is the one area that the concept of the Prime Directive falls apart on. The Federation should have no issue with mitigating natural disasters that would wipe out an entire species.
I'm sure many of them think the Prime Directive is a lousy idea.
Even we think so sometimes.
I know of many times when Starfleet personnel have decided on strong ethical grounds to ignore it. Still, there's a reason why it's Starfleet's General Order Number 1.
This exchange is awesome! It reminds me of a time when franchises liked their fans on the whole, instead of actively hating them. In 11 seconds, they give a quick roundtable discussion that would have been right at home on any Trek fans podcast.
But what do we have to offer? They seem to have everything they need.
Stories are an important part of their culture. They seem to provide more than entertainment. They're kind of a measuring rod of values and beliefs. We have a huge library in our databanks.
While it still doesn't make any sense for them to use stories as a form of currency, I do like the general concept they come up with to provide a means of Voyager having a huge bargaining chip and have that chip be something that most of us would consider mundane or of little value.
In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at that trajector platform. Maybe I can figure out how it works.
You'll do nothing of the sort, Lieutenant.
This is the true central conflict of this episode. With how few episodes explore a division between characters, I like how this episode handles this main issue. Janeway is working to get them home and is actively undermined by her own crew. They could have done more with the crew, maybe not trusting her after blowing up their other ticket home, but regardless, it makes a lot of sense for the crew to go behind her back on this one.
You certainly know how to tempt me, Captain.
If it seems like Laban bounces from creepy to suave, it's not just you. The Sakarans were supposed to join the likes of the Kazon and the Vidians in being a reoccurring enemy, but the powers that be changed their minds. As a result, Laban bounces back and forth between being villainous and a love interest.
My brother's birthday is in 4 days. Last year I promised I'd meet him on Nivok.
Do you think Seska had a cover family, or do you think it was her actual Cardassian brother she was talking about here?
Captain Janeway has asked the magistrate to send us 40,000 light years.
He won't. He never had any intention of helping you leave here.
One of the things I like about this exchange is we never get to know if he's telling the truth. But what he says biases Ensign Kim, Janeway, and even eventually ourselves as we see how the rest of the episode plays out. Also what, you thought I'd let an obvious prop go by and not talk about it? That is the superconducting magnet that Wesley Crusher was holding when he first met Celia in the Season 2 TNG episode The Dolphin.
I have a bad feeling about this. It's just not going to work out.
Don't you think that's up to us?
What does that mean?
It means that we can sit here and let someone make the decision for us, or we can take matters into our own hands.
Can you imagine if the majority of Season 1, maybe even Season 2, was full of moments like this, followed up by Janeway coming down hard on the Maquis members for not following protocols, and Chakotay protecting them? It would have made that scene in Parallax all the more poignant. Ah well, I'm at least thankful for when we get these moments.
You would seem to have two options. Continue to negotiate with a man who may have a hidden agenda, or deal with a man who is willing to defy his own laws.
I think this comment about having two options helps explain why Tuvok makes his own choice in just a minute here. Just because Vulcans are logical doesn't mean their logic is always flawless.
That means there's a certain standard I have to uphold.
Tim Russ doesn't get much room to flex his abilities playing an emotionless Vulcan, but you can definitely see the moment he decides to make the compromise that Janeway felt she couldn't make.
That's what it comes down to. Do I compromise my almighty principles? But how do I not compromise them? If it involves the chance to get the crew more than halfway home.
Considering the fact that she's wrestling so hard with this moral dilemma right now, I'm surprised how hard she comes down on Captain Ransom later on.
Is this how you repay us? With an attack on our beliefs? I don't enjoy being judged like this. It's very upsetting. Not at all pleasurable.
It's all been to gratify yourselves. We're nothing more than the latest novelty.
This is exactly what I meant by the conversation with Ensign Kim biasing everyone's opinions for the rest of the episode.
You never had any intention of helping us, did you?
Of course I did. I did everything in my power to persuade you to stay here.
From Janeway's perspective, this proves he had no intention of helping them leave. But that's not what he said. He's making a comment about how the greatest help would be them living here, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's unwilling to help them at all while trying to convince them to stay.
When I attempted to download it, I noticed it had already been accessed.
You were going to download it?
I love how everyone is so dumbstruck at this realization and says nothing else for the rest of the scene. It's definitely a shocking twist, one Tim Russ had strong feelings about.
Do not attempt to activate the device until I've spoken to Captain Janeway.
I like that just because Tuvok is going behind Janeway's back, it doesn't mean he's stabbing her in the back.
To get a field that size, you need an amplifier as big as a planet.
The crystalline structure of the mantle serves to focus and amplify the trajector field.
If that's how the power transfer occurs, then once we leave orbit, we lose the ability to traject.
This exchange raises a lot of questions for me. If the planet is required to project, how does anyone get back to Sakaris? Why are they assuming this is the only planet in the entire universe that this could work on? And okay, it only raised 2 questions for me, but they're really big questions.
When did this problem show up?
Just now, Captain. It's only a slight variance. I'll have it fixed in a minute.
I give you the face of a woman who just realized that her crappy day could, in fact, get worse.
The plasma manifold is becoming unstable.
I can compensate for that. It's not working. I can't compensate for the instability.
There's no way to compensate for a field that size.
I rag on Trek a lot for the way all the consoles blow up in a firefight, but you have to admit, a little shudder and some smoke was pretty boring visually.
All right, people, let's go right now. Move it out. Move out. Come on, let's go right now. Let's go. Come on. Move it out fast right now.
We didn't anticipate anti-neutrinos. The trajector could never be compatible with Federation technology.
It's hard for me to describe why I love this scene so much. Roxanne Dawson is doing a great job with her acting here, and it's great to see that they aren't perfect beings who get everything perfect the first time. And in just a moment, she stands up to accept responsibility instead of just sweeping under the rug by falsifying sensor logs. There is so much coming together in this scene in an immensely satisfying manner, and I just love it.
There's no need for this.
I'm sorry if you don't get it, Seska. But it has something to do with, honorable.
Better. Albeit a little obvious.
I don't have the luxury of throwing you in the brig for the rest of this voyage. I need you. I need every person on this ship.
First of all, I'm in jail again.
I want you to explain to me how you, of all people, could be involved in this.
Crap! Why are you just standing there, Tuvok? She's busted out the power stance! Fly, you fool!
That your highest goal for the crew was to get them home. But in this instance, your standards would not allow you to violate Sakarian law. Someone had to spare you the ethical dilemma. I was the logical choice.
Tim Russ was never satisfied with this line of logic for why Tuvok went behind Janeway's back. He always thought that Tuvok was willing to sacrifice his commission and take the fall to prevent a ship-wide mutiny. I think that would have been a cool take, but one that couldn't exist in the happy family version of Voyager we got.
And to be court-martialed when we return to Federation space.
Season 1 Janeway makes me feel seen as a parent. Prime factors. I love this episode. It is a little weird to have two we're gonna make it home, nope, just kidding episodes in one season, especially when they're only 3 episodes apart. And talking about that kind of reminds me how every time I watch through season 1, I'm left with a deja vu feeling. Not because each episode is a ripoff of a TNG episode, though I do think that happens here and there, but because I felt like season 1 had several episodes that echo each other. It's weird though, because I can never recall them off the top of my head. It's only after I finish watching it do I go, hey, wasn't that a variation of the theme we got in this other episode? I'm sorry, I've gone off on a huge tangent here. The point is, I love this episode. I like seeing the Prime Directive when we're on the receiving end of things, and I like how you can never really be certain that Laban was lying about helping them. Maybe he really was stalling, trying to get the maximum pleasure he could, but does that mean he would never help them? A fan theory I like is that Tuvok was dropped in rank from Lieutenant Commander to just a Lieutenant because of the events in this episode. Unfortunately though, it doesn't work out. One of the things they did right in this season is making sure every episode takes place in chronological order. Tuvok remains Lieutenant Commander for another 2 episodes, or another 21 days in universe. It was a simple wardrobe mistake that had him as a Lieutenant Commander for the first half of Season 1, but I still like the fan theory. Another great thing about this episode is the growth we get to see in B'Elanna Torres. The B'Elanna from Episode 1 wouldn't have thought twice about beaming to the planet and making the trade, or erasing all the evidence. She still has a bit to learn about being in command, and lets herself get talked into bad choices by her subordinates. But it's a major moment for her when she stands up and confesses everything to the captain. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you want to be a week ahead of everyone else, you can join my supporters on either Subscribestar or Patreon by searching for Life with Matthew, or just clicking on the links in the description of this video. Thank you to my current supporters, which, according to my notes, are John DeMarco at the Priority 1 Hail level, Thomas Potts at the Section 31 tier, and at the Hailing Frequencies Open tier are the Salty Trucker, Ben Joaz, Rock Solid Productions, Commodore Ty, and Bird of Prey 5, the glorious leader of Kuroga. And joining them is Dr. Alex. Thank you, Dr. Alex, for helping make sure I don't have to endure the uncomfortable advances of an alien I just met to make it back home. Be sure to subscribe for more, and until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.